the Generational Awakening YouTube channel. Our aim is to encourage, equip, and empower Christian leaders and parents to effectively nurture the next generation, become resilient, lifelong disciples of Jesus. Today, we welcome our special guest, Mats Tunehag. Mats is a writer, speaker, and consultant, originally from Sweden and now based in the USA. He has, among other things, been active in media, religious liberty, anti-human trafficking, partnership development, and business as mission, otherwise known as BAM. He has worked in more than half of the countries of the world. Starting in Central Asia in the 1990s, he has had a special focus on developing the business as mission, or the BAM concept, as well as national, regional, and global networks and initiatives. Mats is the chairman of BAM Global, which exists to invigorate and equip the global BAM movement. Mats also serves part-time with a global investment fund based on Christian values, helps small and medium-sized enterprises to grow in size and holistic impact by providing financial, intellectual, and human capital. Mats served for many years as a senior leader on business as mission in both the Lausanne movement and the World Evangelical Alliance. He lectures globally on business as mission, and his BAM material is available in over 20 languages. He is married to Jennifer from Alaska, and they live in Sweden and the USA. Hi, Mats. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Harry, for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Well, can you begin by telling us what is business as mission?
Very good and very foundational question. When we talk about business as mission, BAM, we are talking about three things that, of course, are related. One, it is the BAM concept. BAM is a biblical concept, and it's not a new concept. It's based on our Judeo-Christian heritage, biblical thinking, and what the church has been teaching and practicing throughout centuries on how do we serve God and serve people, having a holistic impact, meeting different kinds of needs as we do business. So the BAM concept is recognizing that God calls and equips some people to do business. And then we're looking at what is business from a biblical perspective? What are some narratives, some values that should inform our business practices? And we're not just looking at a Bible verse or two. A pet verse can take you in any direction and possibly even a very wrong and bad direction, but rather we're looking at the big themes and values and narratives of the Bible, freedom, justice, mercy, theology of work. What is community? What is the kingdom of God? What is it to do business with a Great Commission perspective? So BAM is then shaping your business based of these concepts in such a way that it glorifies God, it serves people, it is good steward of the planet, and it also make a profit. And we have engaged over the years now, over a few decades, over 500 people from over 50 different nations in global conversation. What is BAM? What is business as mission? From a biblical perspective, missiological perspective, church perspective, economical perspective, marketplace perspective, and so on. So it's not something that just one or two people felt, this is my idea. It is something that has been peer-produced and peer-reviewed, and we have now over 30 different papers and reports on BAM as a concept and a practice and what that means. And as you mentioned, it now operates in over 20-25 languages around the globe. So shaping your business for God and for people. especially, but not solely, but especially with the Great Commission perspective. And the Great Commission, has two key things in it. And one is, of course, that to make Christ known and do that among all peoples. It has this global thrust to all peoples. So that's why we in Business as Mission, and the concept of BAM, it involves how do we have a spiritual impact? How can Christ become known, God glorified, not just at home, but in Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. And the concept is again, is not new, is not unique, but our unique emphasis, which most marketplace ministries do not have, which doesn't make them bad or wrong, but most marketplace ministries, and there are many of them, have a local emphasis. Nothing wrong with that. That's all good. But the BAM concept really has this to all peoples concept, all spheres. So that's the BAM concept. And we'll talk later on, of course, where can I find these papers and reports, and where can I read more about the concept? Stay tuned, it will come. Now, it's also a practice. So today, there are thousands of small and medium and large size businesses around the globe who have taken this concept and are applying it into their business and the daily business life. And it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not like, do these 10 things and you're fine. It's not, they're all going to be or look the same. It's not one size fits it all. It will vary from country to country, from industry to industry, from business to business, and from time to time what that looks like. But putting BAM into practice is to having this intentionality and professionalism. I'm going to take my values, let my biblical values inform the way I think through all the relationships in my business. Relationship with customers and clients, and of course, staff and suppliers and owners and church and family, and the river that runs through town is another stakeholder. And of course, society at large, the community and the nation, and how can the way I conduct my life and my business have a positive impact on all these relationships. So it is then a practice as well. And thirdly, BAM is also a movement. So concept, practice, movement. A movement is, per definition, different from an organization. You can have an organization, it could be a church, it could be a school, it could be a business, and those have a board, they have statutes, bylaws, members, what budgets, and the hire and fire and all that kind of stuff. Now, a movement is different. It consists of many organizations and many initiatives that are not formally linked, but they share mission and values, and they are linked together for this common mission and based on these values, like the civil rights movement, the abolitionist movement, like the charismatic movement, or the Lausanne movement. And so today there are a lot of groups and initiatives around the globe speaking different languages that have adopted and embraced the BAM concept, and they apply it in their concept. And that is leaders in businesses, of course, and the whole business ecosystem, but also leaders in church, in missions, in academia, universities and colleges and business schools. So that is briefly what is Business as Mission.
Yes, well, certainly when I first really heard the term and just saw some of the ways that you unpack that in your literature and resources, and it really just made the picture so much clearer about how practical it is to live out the gospel in ways that really do seek the good of the community first, and in a way that glorifies God and allows people to see the love of God really worked out in such a practical day-to-day way. with the values that the gospel seeks to share. Well, at this time, who all is involved in business as mission?
It's a good observation there about, it is about having a good impact on community. And that goes back also to what is the BAM concept? Well, it's based on, who God is, who is the triune God that created in community for community. And we are created in God's image to be creative beings, also in business, to create good products and services in community for community. But in that community that we, of course, God is part of that community and the head of that community. So who's involved? Well, God is involved because that is who God is, and that is who we are, created in his image, to be creative and to be good stewards of gifts that have been given to us. And for some, it has been to be a gift to serve in business and in the business arena. So who is involved? Well, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, thousands of them. But of course, there's no business that can be run without staff. So there are all kinds of professionals involved too. But businesses are more than just the businesses in and of themselves. It's the whole ecosystem of people who investors. And there are BAM investment funds, and BAM funds that look at, we want to invest in businesses that are informed by BAM values and help them to grow in size, holistic impact, and profitability. There are accelerators and incubators. There are the training programs and coaches. And so that whole business ecosystem is involved. But also then business schools. There is an increasing number of MBA program, business university programs that teaches BAM, but some also have revamped the whole curriculum. So it's not just a BAM course within the program, but every course within the MBA program should be infused by BAM. And as I sometimes say, it can't be that difficult, because MBA, BAM, same letters, you just throw them around and mix them, and voila, you have it, right? And in Korea alone, there are 4 universities that have BAM MBA programs, just to show you this is not a Western thing. So there are a lot of universities across the globe, colleges and MBA programs that teaches this. And now there are literally dozens of PhDs on business as mission and countless MBA theses on business as mission. Also at secular universities, because they recognize this is a phenomenon. This is a global phenomenon that is making an impact. So like the London School of Economics, for example, there's a MBA thesis coming out of that. So business people are involved, academics and thus students are also involved, but also churches. There are local churches who teaches this. There are churches, denominations that have embraced BAM as part of their mission strategy. And that ranges from Singapore, from Korea, from Brazil to the US, and even some large worldwide denominations like the Assemblies of God or the Foursquare denomination here from out of the US. But fourthly, there is also mission agencies, of course, who are steered by and driven by the Great Commission perspective, and to have an holistic impact on communities. And increasingly over the years, they've come to see that in and through business, they can actually make a difference to make Christ known and serve people and transform people's lives through business. So they are involved, but of course, in a different way, but in a good way. And today, most of the biggest and oldest evangelical mission agencies in the world have embraced BAM and are involved in different levels. So these four categories are all involved, and then of course it filters down in other ways as well. Because you have globally, we talk about different languages that are being used for BAM. So there's a YouTube channel on BAM in Russian, for example. There is a BAM investment fund in Brazil. There's a BAM Southern Africa network consisting of 11 countries. There is a BAM-related network of businesses in Indonesia that involves about 30,000 entrepreneurs. So actually, and we can go on and on. There's in India, there's in Northeast India, there's in Singapore, there's in China, there's a website with just BAM material in Chinese, both the in Mandarin and Cantonese, old script and new script. So it is a growing number of people involved. And since it is a movement, nobody's directing from top, you should do this, you should do that, but people get the vision and they start to express that in different arenas.
Well, it's wonderful to see, and really see how that's just the local cultural expression of that being lived out. And in what ways can a local church or even a family get involved in BAM?
Good question. Let's start with church. And of course, a fundamental thing which we have realized also as we've done this global think tank work over a couple of decades now is that it's still a need to convey the message of BAM. What is BAM? And to break down that secular sacred divide that it's holy to work in a church. It's not that holy, but maybe acceptable at best to work in business.
Yes.
But BAM is taking the Sunday talk into a Monday walk, and is connecting the dots Sunday and Monday. And BAM is not a technique; it is a worldview and then a lifestyle. And for it to become a biblical worldview that is internalized and then expressed in your daily life, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so forth, we need teaching in church. What is theology work? What is God's view on business? And how can we affirm and equip and deploy business people in our church to service in the marketplace? Not as ushers in the church. They may do that too, but that's not their primarily role or calling. And so, ask yourself, if you're a church leader or if you're in church, how can we do that? And that also goes back to seminaries. Most pastors have never had one single class in 3-4 years on theology of work or theology of business. So no wonder we don't hear many sermons on theology or work. The second thing that I would encourage pastors to do, which you don't have to add another program, have another line item in your budget, but a very simple thing you can do that can revolutionize your church and relationships in the church. Ask a few, handful, maybe 10 business people in your church if you could meet them for an hour at their convenience. And first you're going to tell them, I'm not going to ask you for money, because that's what they're used to. Oh, pastor wants to talk to me. He wants money. No, you're going to say, oh, I'm not going to ask you for money. I'm just going to have some simple questions. And the primary question is, what are you facing in your business this week? And how can I pray for you and your business? That's all. Don't try to solve their problems, because you may not be able to, because you're not a business person, but listen to them and engage with them. Try to understand what they're facing. Could be a staff issue, could be a cash flow issue, it could be a competitor, it could be a tax issue, whatever it is, just ask them the question and then pray. Because I've asked literally hundreds and hundreds of business people across the globe. How many of you have ever been asked by your pastor, how can I pray for you in your business? That is usually zero. Nobody's ever been asked that. Then I asked the same group of people, how many of you have been approached by your pastor and he been asking you for money for the church? And that's 95+%. Second question is not wrong, but that we have a 0% on the first question, that needs to be changed.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you know, Matt, my heart vision is very much for the next generation, for the children and the youth. And I believe this is so important for them to grasp. So what message do you want to communicate to the children and youth of today?
Yeah, and here's also where families can get involved and parents, because everything around you at home is produced, manufactured, or serviced by a business. You can take the milk carton, you can take the table, you can take the iPhone and just ask, where does it come from? Who did this? Is this, I mean, we appreciate the milk, the table, the iPhone, and who produced it? And, you know, and talk about, do we know of people in our context, in our neighborhood, in our family, in our church are involved in business? And what do they do? And maybe even ask someone you know who runs a business, can me and my family come and visit your business to see what does it mean to run a business? And just to introduce people to, you know, that everything we enjoy is usually comes from a business somewhere, and to understand that process and the people behind it. And then if you as a family pray, thank God for the business people who've done this very, very thing. And well, that's a practical and easy way how you as a family can be involved. And then say to the next generation, well, you know, we're all different, and that's the beauty of both creation and humanity. It is a multitude of things. You know, I'm taking this call right now from the Washington DC area, and the climate here is subtropical, and when you go out, there's so many different kinds of shades of green. There's not just one kind of green. There's gazillion shades of green. And the same thing with us as people. We're not just one. And God is not just thinking there's one role for you. That's like there's only one green leaf needed. No, there are all kinds of people that are needed to meet different kinds of needs, and not one vocation or profession or job is more holy than any other. So if you're 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old, you know, go with God on the flow. Go with what God puts in your heart. And it may change how that is being expressed throughout your life. But always think, how can I serve God and serve people in the job that I have or the job that I'm pursuing? That's a true holy calling. Whether you're going to be a janitor, a housewife, a CEO of a company, whatever you're going to be, an astronaut, you know, aim high and go with God.
Yes, absolutely. And God delights in communicating to our hearts. And I've met young people who are very much aware of, you know, falling to a particular kind of profession from a very young age. And I believe, you know, Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice, they know me and they follow me. So if we ask Jesus the question, you know, what kind of professional do you want me to serve in, or what further education should I do, or how can I get involved? What should I be doing, you know, with my friends? He delights to answer us, and really encouraging our young people to have that sensitivity developed from the youngest age.
Exactly. No, that's true.
Well, Where and how can people learn more about BAM and connect with you?
Well, one tool would be a booklet of 60-something pages called BAM A to Z. I've taken the English alphabet, 26 letters, and then identifying 26 key words, concepts, which is BAM, have a simple sentence in a graphic, the word, the letter, the word, and a sentence in a graphic. And then there's a few paragraphs on the next page explaining what this means. And that is a simple tool you can use in church, you can use in a business management setting, you can use it as a family, and you can do, one go through from A to Z, or you can pick some letters and words that make sense to you. And of course, it starts with avodah. And avodah is a Hebrew word that is used interchangeably for work, worship, and service. It's that integrated whole, as you mentioned, what young people want to do and pursue. And even if you're older, to work is to worship and to serve. And in a Western context and mindset, we often make the distinction: worship is what I do on Sunday in a church building, and work is what I do on Monday through Friday in some secular arena. But in a biblical Jewish concept, which is our roots and our heritage, it is an integrated whole, and that's avodah. And so you can start, that's the BAM A to Z booklet, and it's a free download, and we'll get that in for you.
Right. Well, it's certainly a great tool, which I loved discovering and sharing. And I know you've written other books and reports and articles, and you've just published a new book entitled Wounded Healers in the Marketplace. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a short booklet. I think it's a dozen pages or so forth, something like that. And it was published by the group in Indonesia that I'm working with, the BAM group there. Going through life, we will get wounded and hurt and disappointed. It's part of life. It's not fun. It's nothing we pursue. But how do we turn our hurts and disappointments and our wounds into something that can be positive also in the marketplace? Because to be in business is tough, and we're not unlikely to have some tough challenges and be hurt and have wounds. But how can we become wounded healers? Wounded healers. And I relate that to another Jewish concept, which is called Tikkun Olam, and that's the letter T in the BAM A to Z booklet. And that Tikkun Olam means to repair or to heal the world. That is observing what is, which may not be ideal, and then understand this is what it ought to be, what we should move towards. So Tikkun Olam is to repair the world, bring healing to the world by working with God and bridging that gap from what is to what it ought to be, which is, of course, the Lord's Prayer. It's the Tikkun Olam prayer. May your kingdom come, may your will be done as it ought to be in our context, which is broken, but needs healing and repair. And there's a Japanese art form called kintsugi. And that's when you take a broken vessel, a teapot that could be centuries old, and it's shattered in pieces. And you take it, and with gold, you put the pieces together and create something new and even more beautiful, a transformed piece. And that transformed piece is not just a patching up of the broken pieces, is taking the broken pieces, but creating something that is even more beautiful and valuable than the original teapot. So in that booklet, I also describe a bit of my own personal journey and hurts. And why do I continue doing BAM? Well, it is the wounded healer and the calling to do tikkun olam with that transformative view of kintsugi. So that's also available for a free download. And if I just may, here towards the end, mention there are 3 websites where you can find more material. bamglobal.org, which has all these 30 plus reports, and the BAM manifesto and the wealth creation manifesto. We have the businessasmission.com, which is the largest BAM resource library in the world, with videos, books, articles, blogs, interviews, and all that, case studies. And then matsunehag.com, where you'll find BAM material in over 20 languages.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's a wonderful gift for the global church to have those resources really focused and available and very practical, like the books you mentioned. Well, as we conclude, Matt, what final thought or call to action do you have for our viewers?
Well, when we talk about BAM, business as mission, we need to ask, so why BAM? Why BAM? Number 1, God wants it. It's not a human idea. It's not BAM Global's idea. It is God. It's his concept. It is his global movement, and he wants it. 2, the world needs it. The world needs it. When we look at so many of the global issues today, unemployment, poverty, environmental degradation, human trafficking, unreached peoples, so many of these needs can be addressed in and through business. And not just any kind of business. Of course, the mafia is also doing business, but doing business, for God, for people, for community, being mindful of the planet. Yes, doing BAM. So God wants it, the world's needs it. And thirdly, God calls people to do it, to do BAM. And maybe God calls you to BAM. Consider it.
Well, thank you much for being with us and sharing about BAM and for why we can all be part of God's meta story and his purposes that he's working out, which include the way in which the gospel is shared and lived out and demonstrated, and invites all people everywhere to be part of that wonderful transformation that God is bringing. Well, below people can find links to the website and resources that Matt has mentioned, along with the contact details to find out more. And if you have found value in what we have shared today, I invite you to like this video and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be informed of each new video released. Let us know in the comments below what you have found most helpful or encouraging and any questions you may have. Then share the link with friends and churches who would also be helped and inspired. And together, let's impact many more lives for good across all the generations and all the nations. So thank you again for joining us today. Be blessed, and let's keep multiplying the blessing to others. Bye for now.